Well, hey everybody, welcome to Friday at 5. I'm Karen Taylor of the Color Vowel Chart. We're excited to be here today. We've got a special panel discussion that I know you all know about, so we're excited about that. We have some new faces in the room, so welcome to you if you are new. If you're new to Color Vowel, no worries. We're going to soak in it for a couple minutes here at the beginning. I've had folks find the chat, so be sure you found the chat and go ahead and type in a hello from your city, state, or country, or city in that other country. I want to welcome now, presenting from Japan. We'd like to have Japan in the room. Do we have any other countries in the room? I'm just sort of looking through the chat here. I see the country of Colorado. I know, it's its own country, but we have lots of places. And so let's just go ahead and warm up with the chart, remembering that what we're doing at Color Vowel is providing learners and teachers with a way to organize spoken English in a way that makes spoken English an accessible animal, if you will. It makes it something that we can actually manage. It's not this mysterious variable thing so much anymore because we know how English works. And the way English works is there's always a single primary stress in a word, and in a phrase there's a focus stress. So there's always one word or one syllable that is going to get that prominence, and it has a color. So with Colorado, I say ah, ah, ah. It's an olive word. Anybody want to test the system, see what we can do about that? Like Japan, what color is Japan? Yeah, if we are all muted, it's great because now we can all speak. Japan, you can just say it like that. It's where you would nod your head if you were being really emphatic. Japan, like that, or where you'd raise your eyebrows, Japan. All of that's marking stress. So what color? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What color is Japan? First person to answer gets candy. No, well, virtual candy. Thank you, Skip. Good, black. Wonderful. We'll do like 2 more just to make sure we kind of get the idea that when you're able to light up spoken English with these color vowels, you can do a lot then after you have that foundation. You can connect reduction or what's really happening in speech. Then you can add grammar to that and know that we add color to the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. And so, there's so much else that we can just connect after that. And we'll be learning from our panelists today about what they do with the chart. One more place as we have some final folks joining the room. How about, we have so many nice black places. Seattle, Albuquerque. How about Virginia? Virginia. Can everybody say Virginia with their hand? Let's watch that. Virginia, thank you. I'm watching Suzanne. Nice big Virginia. Yeah. What color is Virginia? Silver pin Virginia. There we go. Good. All right. Well, good. I think we've got a good number in the room. We'll have some other folks joining us. I'd like to introduce some key people before we then bring in our panelists and introduce them. Along over there in the chat, we've got a few people moderating, and I'd like to introduce Jennifer. Go ahead and raise your hand and say hello, maybe with your mic. Where are you, Jennifer? There you are. She's in the room and she's watching. So Jennifer helps us keep all of the ducks in a row on the color vowel.
I'm here. I'm helping people get into the room. So.
Good. And she also helps me with metaphor management. So all my ducks on the ship, that kind of stuff, she's in charge of me. Also in the room, we have Penny Williams. And so Penny's from Blue Canoe. She's waving there. Any questions you have about Blue Canoe, Jenny will be right there to answer. Let's just do a raise of hands in the room. How many of you use Blue Canoe already with students? Just a raise of hands. Good. And I'm going to assume that the other is not quite yet, but interested. So all of you need to know Sarah Daniels. Sarah Daniels, do a little raise of hands over there. Good. Sarah Daniels is CEO of Blue Canoe. She has been steering this ship for the last 4 years. This has been a 4-year journey with Color Vowel, creating an app for students with voice recognition and this thing we call machine learning, which is basically creating something that can perceive or detect features that we wanted to detect. In this case, it would be the features of accented English that interfere with communication. So we have this feedback, and then we have the methodology behind it, which is Color Vowel. So all of this is what we've been doing, Sarah and I, and our final that I would like to introduce would be Laura Mcendu. So Laura's over here waving. Laura created the game Color It Out about, gosh, 6 or 7 years ago. If anybody knows our really lovely card game, Color It Out. Can you raise a hand if you used Color It Out before? Okay, yeah, so it's near and dear, and out of this game came this idea to make an app out of it. So that's kind of our little backstory. And Laura's here on the education team with me at Blue Canoe, also teaching in a community college at the same time. And so doing a lot of piloting of how to make that bridge between technology and teaching, where our students are physically and where we are physically, where we came from in our schools and where we are right now in the pandemic era of teaching. So there's my 5-minute intro. I'd like to now introduce our two panelists. We're so thrilled to have you here for our Fridays. Our Fridays are always some kind of a blend of teaching and technology and the color vowel chart. And today our technology is Blue Canoe. Our teachers on the panel are Heather Chol from the Lotus School of Excellence in Aurora, Colorado. And I'm also glad to welcome Jannie Crossler-Laird from, I hope I said your last name correctly? Close enough? From Chemeketa Community College in Oregon. So I'd like to welcome each of you. And you can unmute, please. Let's do a little applause. Here we are. There we go. Nicely done. So welcome. I'd like to start off just by warming up and asking each of you, and I'll start with Heather. When did you come across Color Vowel? How have you been using it? Let's say up to when you started using Blue Canoe, and then you can talk about when you decided to use Blue Canoe and how that's been going. Just kind of a brief intro, maybe a couple minutes each. Yeah.
So I first found Color Vowel when I went to my state's TESOL conference, and Karen was there and had a little session going, and I thought, looks interesting, and I popped in and it was like instant, I have to have this in my classroom. And we got to play with it and figure it out as adults and teachers, and so I immediately bought the stuff and took it into my classroom, and my kids absolutely loved it as much as I did. And so when I heard that Blue Canoe was out, and all I really paid attention to at first was that they could play the game on the phone, and I thought, that's awesome. They don't have to have those physical cards, and we can do similar things, and then there's lessons and everything that goes with it, and it was so exciting for me. So it's been a number of years. I think it was probably close to the beginning when I found that, and I'm excited to be part of the journey.
Yeah, I think that was probably about, 5 years ago that I was in Oregon. Yeah, wonderful. Great, Heather. Well, thanks. Hi, Jannie.
Okay. My name is Jannie Crossler-Laird, and so I teach adult ESL students, and I've always taught pronunciation and love it. It's my favorite subject, but went to a training that Karen did for another institution in our city. Another faculty person and I did it, and then we came back and we both incorporated it into our classes because it's just such a great way to talk about talk about the vowels and talk about pronunciation. And then one of our teachers was an English language fellow in Ethiopia, and that was her focus, was teaching the color vowel chart there because the State Department uses it a lot. And so then she came back and did some training with some of our other teachers, and so now in our program, most of our kind of high beginning up through higher level classes all use it for pronunciation. And so then when we saw last spring, when the information about Blue Canoe came out, it was in some email from maybe Color Vowel Chart, and it was free for students for the first, because of remote learning, then we were all like, oh, this would be great. And so we worked with Penny, even right at the beginning, to get it started and to get students on it. And I'll just tell you also, our students, so we would have adult students, and we would play the Color It Out game in class. And the students, I always had students come to me and say, where can I buy this? I want to buy this game and play it with my kids. And, you know, their kids are learning English in schools, in high school, middle school, but they really wanted to buy it. And we would go to the website, and, you know, it was a little bit expensive. I'm sorry to say, Karen. And so when we found out that it was on the app, it was like, look, you can have this app and it has the game right there. You can play it on your phone and it's free. It was free last fall, and then we have an institutional account. And so, so for those students that really enjoyed it, it was a great way to have it.
Wonderful. Yeah, it is. We've been really happy to be able to offer as we've grown. You know, we had early, some of you were on the very early side of Blue Canoe, and we were able to use, use your insights to make it better and better. And that said, you know, we make it into we run a business so that we can continue building and offering a great product. So we appreciate, you know, I know things cost, and we try to offer a nice free product. So if anybody doesn't already have Blue Canoe, you can download that from the App Store or your Google Play Store right now. And this is, by the way, this is a recorded session. So, you know, I wanted to jump in and just mention, if you know somebody who will want to have been at this session, you're going to be able to share this. It will be on YouTube. And I wanted other folks to also know that if you don't want to be on YouTube, you can choose to close out your screen if you ask a question, okay? So that's just a little bit of housekeeping as we come back in. So coming back to Heather and to Jannie, I'd like to also go back into just instruction for a moment. What has Color Vowel done for your instruction? And I'll just sort of start it with that, with a pointed question of, can you imagine teaching without reference to Color Vowel at this point? Or is it something that now you consider sort of part of the way you speak? And I'll start with Heather.
Yeah, so I teach high school and I teach all English language learners. And so when families move in with a high school student, and you know, they've had some English wherever they're coming from, but they don't have all those sounds. And so finding materials that are appropriate for high school to learn phonics and those sounds is really hard. But when I found the Color Vowel and Color It Out, it made everything fun. You know, it's fun, it's interactive, and the students just jump onto it. And once they learn those initial colors and things, it just makes reading a whole different world for them. So much easier, and it's rolled out in a fun way, because I start with the game, and then I introduce, you know, more of kind of the behind the scenes and the color vowel chart and everything, because then it enhances the game that they already have fun playing. And so it's kind of a backwards process for me, but I struggled until I had this. And because it's just so hard to find things appropriate for high school students. And you know, when they come in and they don't have a lot of English, their day in high school is so stressful. And to be able to understand something about English in a fun and at their level way was just huge. And it was, yeah, anything that you can make fun and not so stressful is amazing for anybody, really, but especially high school students in a new country. And
yeah, I hear in your voice everything about gamification. I mean, that age group, they wanted this idea of fun. I mean, it's really about, if all of learning could be a game. Jannie,
Yeah.
Do you find that to be something that crosses over to the community college world?
Yes, but I tend to, I have always taught pronunciation as a skill. But what I love about the color vowel chart is it attaches a sound to a color. So it's not just a sound. It has something, it's, the visual, of course, but it's also it's attached to something they can relate to. I tend to teach the color vowel chart first. So I go through it with them before I put them on the game or do other things. And what I always tell my students is that we're creating a language to talk about pronunciation. And so, I give them there's 14 vowel sounds, and, that's the way I like to learn. I like to have the background, the structure, and then to start to use it. So we really start with what is it? How do you use it? What are the sounds? We go through them, we talk about them, and then we start to do activities that play with them. What are their names? We use it a lot as we're learning vocabulary, and we'll identify, as we're studying vocabulary in our textbook chapter, then we start to talk about what sound is this? Where's the stress? So that's more how I approach it. And then for them, the game is like the treat that they get to play after they've learned it. And then also I don't let them go on Blue Canoe until I've given them some background on some structure at a level that I know they understand. But that's my teaching style. So.
Yeah. Well, and
we really work with the chart first, and then we do, okay, let's look at what you're studying and how does it relate to that?
Yeah. So. Well, and I think, it'd be fun to just look in the room for a moment, because we have all of these color vowel lists in the room. How many of you start with the game like Heather does? Does anybody start with color it out? Skip, I think you've done that. I've seen you. And we have a lot of adult ed people here. So I know for a fact that a lot of my middle school people start with the game also, Heather. You're not alone. And then how many start with the chart? How many start with something different, like what color is your name, an activity, or say vowel discovery? So there are lots of doorways in there. And I just love hearing and seeing, that, it's going to match the way you teach, and it's also going to match your learners. That's wonderful. Great. And so with Blue Canoe, how natural a transition has that been? Let's talk about Blue Canoe a little bit now, and what that felt like when you said to your learners, the game is now in an app, but what about all the rest of it? And how do you feel about supporting that and getting started? In fact, I think, Heather, you're just now getting started. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or that's Jannie. Okay. Why don't we start with Jannie? Jannie, you're just getting your students started. The semester started a little late, right?
And we just started this week because students were reluctant for remote learning. We did this big campaign and push. So I really just introduced it yesterday to my students. I explained, we talked about the color vowel chart, we practiced it, and then I had them download the app, and I had them do it during class because I have some adult learners that, technology is a challenge for them. And so we worked on it during class, and I showed them the brief video, the promotional video, the 3-minute, and then we'll go back and we'll do a longer video that explains more of the pieces and shows more of the pieces in more detail, and then we'll practice it.
Great. And we'll share that. That's the Blue Canoe and You video, I think, right?
The longer one or the shorter one?
The 3-minute-ish.
Yeah, the 3 minutes on the website. And so I showed them that one.
Wonderful. Great. No, and we have a lot of support resources on our website. And I know Penny might be posting that link shortly to our teacher resource page in case anyone's interested. Great. And so they're just now getting started. I know, I'm watching people nodding their heads. Anyone who's working with adults can definitely sympathize with the tech challenges that adults have, right?
Yeah. It's harder because, and we were talking about this before we started, because I can't see what they're doing on their phones. And so I had them, we took class time, and some of them were really fast and just, downloaded it. And I said, okay, go, just go work on it. Watch your 2 videos that you have to watch first. Go do that. And then I had some that were just struggling. Whereas if it were Zoom, if it were a computer program, I could have them share their screen and I could talk them through how to create, you know, the lock, do it, get in there. But because it was on a phone, I couldn't look over their shoulder. And so for adult learners, for some of my learners, that's a challenge.
Definitely. And this is just to clarify, and we had a question in the chat. You're both teaching online, is that right?
Yes. Yeah, my students are by Zoom.
You know, we do share every Friday all these different sort of tricks, but one that we talked about just before this session was the challenge. You know, students hold up their phone and it's all bright white. Has anybody had that happen? Like, this is what's happening. You're like, I'm blinded by the light. I've found through now several years of presenting Blue Canoe online, sometimes I use my document camera and sometimes I just want to hold up the phone. And if you lower your light, this is an iPhone, so if you lower your light level, like the brightness level, right? If you take it down, then when you go to Blue Canoe, which is a very white screen kind of experience, you can see. So if you can at least do that yourselves, but I've taught students to do that too, so I can see what they're doing. So just a little tip there for at least iPhone student users, but you'll have to find that for Android. Great. Heather, how's it been for you getting up and started with Blue Canoe?
So we're about at the same spot. It was just rolled out this week to our students as well. But in the meantime, knowing that it was coming, I've been talking to students, especially, you know, some of my upper high school students who have maybe played Color It Out with me for a couple years and have really benefited from that. I've let them know, hey, it's coming out on an app and you're going to get an account and you're going to be able to do this. And I've showed it on my phone. So they were super excited and they've been asking me, you know, when do we get that? When do we get that? I really want it. So, so that's been awesome, just building that anticipation. And so as soon as they get access, they're super excited.
And you used Blue Canoe last year with your students, didn't you? Is that right?
I did it for spring term, part of spring term. And it was more, they were working more independently on it. So I didn't do as much, whereas this term we'll watch more of the videos, the different sounds and practice those. So my intent is to watch a video and then do some practice with vocabulary in class with those sounds, kind of as a warm-up for class.
Great. You know, what's really exciting, have you found, and you know, I'm imagining there's some yeses in here, when students are using Blue Canoe from last semester, do they come back with questions that aren't just like, how do I do this on the phone? But was this word really mustard? You know, like, because is really mustard? Do you get those kind of questions coming back to you about particular words?
I haven't gotten it so much. It happens more in class, but then some of my students move on to another teacher and we all are using the color vowel chart. So I'm kind of introducing them to it at my level and then they're getting it in other classes. So it may be that other teachers have gotten that.
Right, wonderful. I'd like to open up, I'd like to just mention Laura is in the room, or maybe she just left. There you are, Laura, thank you. Laura has also just recently rolled out Blue Canoe, and I thought you might want to add, you're doing some leaderboardy kind of stuff. Would you like to describe that?
Yeah, actually, I was just checking in Clipfolio, which is the dashboard that you get when you sign up your whole class. And I'm teaching a low intermediate adult ed community college program and a high intermediate. And I have fewer in my low intermediate to start with and fewer that are responding to the tech challenge. You know, I have a lot of older students. And so I have about half as many in my low intermediate as my high intermediate that are actively playing Blue Canoe. But right now it is what it is. And the ones who are playing are really playing. And each week, well, let me back up. I start my classes off with what color is your name to introduce the chart. And then we talk about the chart and we do things like days of the week and, you know, just try and get them into it. I have students watch a couple of the videos on YouTube that are wonderful so they can watch in their own time. And then I say, check your email and Penny will help you get set up and please download Blue Canoe. And so I have them set up. Sorry. I have them set, get themselves on board with Blue Canoe. And then by the end of the first week, I say, okay, you should be on board. And next week, I want to see, I'm going to share who has the most points. And I tell them that points are based on time, not on how well you do. Because I don't want it to be competitive, like the best speaker already will win. And so they learn that points are awarded based on time and, the number of games they play and things like that. And then at the end of each week, I do the top 3 spots, and I do it for overall, because we're doing 5-week intensive classes. And we do who is the leader in the top 3 spots for this week, and then who is it overall. And it's just been fun because, everyone likes to play games, which is, why I made Colored Out in the first place, because I teach adults and adults love playing games, and a little bit of competition can really, really help. And actually I had one student who I think had it in the spring and didn't get transferred into my class until like the 2nd week. And she was super upset that she wasn't in the top 3 because she had been playing like crazy. And it turns out she wasn't in the class, and we got her in the class, and now she's in the 4th spot. And I know she's playing all the time. And it may seem funny, but all I do is hold up a little whiteboard with the number 1, 2, and 3. But it's just enough to really kind of have a nice focus and say, how are you doing this week? How much have you played? And I was just looking at my top player, and she's played over 20 hours in the last 4 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, and she was telling the class, I told Karen this earlier, she said, like, why do you watch TV? TV is a waste of time. Play Blue Canoe instead. Because another student said, how do you play so much? And she said, if I'm waiting for something, I play Blue Canoe. When I sit down with, I pull out my phone, I play Blue Canoe. And she says, it's always here. She says, I play with my hand and it's always here. And she said, that's how I get my time in. So she's not only the top player, but we're looking at improvement too. And the way we've designed the score in Blue Canoe, it's not going to skyrocket if they play, every day for a week. It's supposed to reflect actual improvement, which, as you know, does not happen overnight. And so their score doesn't jump up immediately. But this top player, she's gone up 30 points in her, I think it's her word pronunciation improvement score, which is significant. And so she's putting in the time, and it's actually working, and she knows it. So it was just wonderful to hear from her this week. And it does show that a little competition can be a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, I like that leaderboard idea, Laura. Is anyone, raise their hands, anyone else doing any kind of what we call leaderboard, or just showing number of minutes? It involves using Clipfolio, which is our dashboard for teachers. So anytime a school or a teacher through their school have created a subscription with Blue Canoe, you have access to this dashboard, and you can see, when did your students last play? How long did they play? How many times have they met their goal?
Right.
With that daily goal being about 10 to 12 to 15 minutes of play per day. Okay.
Or an hour.
Or an hour. Their goal is 2 hours a day. Yeah, you have some hardcore players there. Great. Well, let me come back to Heather and Jannie. I'd like to come back to the question of just these ahas. What does this do for students? And can you tell us each a story of an aha that either comes from Color Vowel or Blue Canoe, coming back into that idea of motivating and giving students confidence? And I'll start with, I'll start with Heather.
I was trying to nail down a particular story, and there are just too many instances where it just clicks for them, where after we've played the game, a couple times, we've talked about the chart and reading. It's just so easy when they're sounding out a word and they're not quite saying it right to just say, no, it's a wooden hook, and they're just like, oh, and they got it, and you move on. And there are just so many moments like that. It's not going back and teaching a whole theory. It's just, no, it sounds like this, and you move on. And it's just, so that's what I like, is that it's not time consuming as you go on. You don't have to go back and reteach a whole lesson. You know, it's just a sound, and then you can move on.
Yeah.
And that's how I'm explaining it to our content teachers is, you know, once they know this, that's the benefit of having it in multiple rooms. Once they know that, it's so quick to make that correction, and they understand it.
Wonderful. Yeah. Jenny?
I think I would say the same thing, that it, as I said earlier, it gives us a language, a common language to talk about pronunciation. And so you can say, no, that's a, you know, that's a rose boat, and they get it. And for them, it's all, for ESL students, you know, olive sock, they always want to say O instead of ah. And so it's always, oh no, that's an olive sock, that's an olive sock, that's an olive sock. And so just giving them it's that tool that you can use to talk about speech and about how words sound and how sentences sound.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to share, just this is an opportunity to share a graphic that I recently made to try to describe what we're really aiming for, and I think doing in effect with Blue Canoe is this thing that suddenly that we're not just teaching in the moment of the classroom, but that moment with the student ends, and then what happens the rest of the day, so to say. So this is this figure 8 concept, and I'm going to put it out here and ask our panelists what they think about this, and is this sort of maybe what's happening, that in the classroom, whether that's digital or face-to-face at some point, you know, we've got the chart, we're able to make these references to the chart, answer those questions elegantly, you know, really short term, not taking too much time from the lesson. And then we have that moment of learning. This is the idea of, you know, learning comes from this, that conscious, like, oh, it's that simple. And then when they cross the line over here, they get home or outside of class, they're still home because we're all at home in our pajama pants, but they pull out Blue Canoe and there they are with Color It Out. And suddenly there's this other side of the coin, or this other part of the flow where they're practicing. And this sort of comes to this question back is when do the questions start to come back, the reflection? And so, you know, you're at the beginning of your semester, but does this help lend, or does this speak to you? And yeah, maybe it's a different metaphor, but wanted to put it out there.
No, it's a beautiful metaphor for it. And you're right. They, a lot of times they'll ask then about words. How is this word pronounced? How do I say this word? Because they're becoming aware of it, their pronunciation and how things are pronounced.
And that question, you know, that question that you're modeling, what color is bleu? What color is topic? Even just saying it sounds like it's so obvious to everybody, but what do they answer? Rose, topic, you know, you're like, oh, it's olive. And maybe they'll come back and say, wow, I thought this word was rose. That's sort of what I've been visioning. As you can see, I've been busy in PowerPoint visioning this. So yeah, Heather, does this speak to you too?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this because it's a constant cycle. And you know, as we're rolling out Blue Canoe, we started with, I chose just a couple sections to give them an introduction. And then as they get into it and get, you know, more used to the program, we're going to roll out more words. And so it totally makes, you know, that where, you know, we've got this down, you've practiced it and you're internalizing it, and then we're going to roll out and we're going to teach a little bit more. And it's just that constant cycle. So I love that.
I love that. already do this. It just tells me that it's spot on. I love it.
We need to get it into the yoga now.
So we'll use this again for my next question, which is, you know, I'm using this the first time to talk about the flow of learning and practicing and reflecting, but there's also this bridge that I think everybody in the room struggles with, and it's been mentioned at the beginning. It's sort of, you know, I used to teach face-to-face and I'd pull out my Color It Out cards and we'd, you know, play, or just so many things that we've lost or feel now really mourn for in the face-to-face world, that I'll use this side to represent, right, where the chart is, like where we used to go touch it and so forth. And we need to create these bridges to teaching online. So I'll use now the right side to sort of represent this teaching in Zoom world that we all live in right now. and see, I'd like to ask what you two, as well as other folks in the room, are doing as creating that bridge. You know, we're finding ways to innovate, and I know some of us have done it actively through our Fridays at 5, and others are just pretty much doing it on their own, and we all have our ways. But how is it that we're bridging? And I'll start with Heather and Jannie. How are you doing in Zoom, and how is Color Vowel changing as you've moved over into that venue?
So I've been using my document camera, and so it's kind of me manipulating the cards, and they just get to kind of participate. So it's not near as engaged as I would like it to be, but at least it gets the sounds out, and it gets us in the practice, and we're able to kind of work through things a little bit. So I'm looking forward to having Blue Canoe to be able to do that, or ideas to make it better.
Okay, and with the Color Vowel chart, and again, this goes out to other folks too, and you're welcome to write in the chat. You know, right now I have this chart right behind me. How are you conveying, just referring to the chart? Is it something behind you, or is it a screenshot maybe?
Screen share.
Screen share. Yeah, we have that interactive audio Color Vowel chart on our website, so that's available to everybody for free. Yeah, and maybe Jennifer will put up a link to that, our interactives page, because I can see she's right there for us. My hands have cards in them. How about you, Jannie? How's it going bridging the old physical world to teaching online with Color Vowel?
So I generally teach them with I use a scan, so I do a screen share and do a scan of the Color Vowel chart. And I use the Western US one because we don't do Auburn dog we don't have that in the West. But I love the idea of having a poster behind you, just because it reinforces that. I think that's great. But so I teach them with that. I showed them the interactive. I have that link in we use Canvas as our learning management system. So I have like a pronunciation section, and I have that link for the interactive where they can go and, you know, touch the different sounds and hear them. And then the other thing I did was I took the graphic organizer that I think you had, Karen, and I remade it as a Google Doc with colors. So I took, you know, green tea, the words are in green, and then I shared it with them originally, but now what we do is we pull it up in class, and as we talk about vocabulary that we're studying together, if it's a health topic, then we'll put those words. I'll ask them, you know, I give them the list of words, and I'll say, you know, work in a breakout group, decide what colors these are, and then we come back and we talk about them, and I type them in, and then they have access to that document to go back and review. So that's kind of how we're doing it electronically.
Just to share with everybody in the room, we do have a teacher's page that we're posting shortly. There's I'm noticing a website glitch there. But yeah, so many ways to make that organizer that I think is a really compelling, I don't know, it's a signal. If they can have an organizer with them physically too, with Blue Canoe, then they can write things down, right? Yeah. How about the dictionary? How are you using the dictionary during class, or is it something that your students are using more outside of class?
I haven't, it's because we're just starting it. I haven't used it a lot yet. I showed it to my upper level students. And so we'll get into that in a week or two, because I think it is a valuable tool. I've showed it on the app, but not the Chrome browser extension.
Okay, so the Chrome browser extension, let's talk a little bit about that. And first, I'll take a moment to show folks what that looks like, and then and see what's happening out there with it. So this is our website with the beautiful Laura Mcendu right there on front and center. This is our teachers page. It has so much waiting for everybody, by the way, including these free downloadables, the organizer that Jannie just mentioned, as well as our Blackline Master and a couple short videos from me showing a couple ways you can use it, and I'm sure you'll come up with more. Here's our lovely Blue Canoe short video, the 3-minute. But up here, if we're on any web page and you have the browser extension installed, like I do up here in this corner, you can see a little Blue Canoe there. I have it triggered so that when I hit shift and I hit double click, it looks up that word for us. So it's really lovely and immediately accessible. You know, we can find out that that's black cat understandable. Again, that looks so obvious to those of us who already speak English, but to our students, these long words are not easy to figure out. So it's just really handy and available on bluecanoelearning.com's page. So I
introduced that to a few of my high school students because they have so much reading to get through in English, and so much of it is difficult for them. So just a few of them, I did show them that, and like, oh, wow. And it's just to have a tool that they're in charge of, that when they need just that little bit of help, makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Such a difference.
Yeah. I was always
easy.
As a reader, I mean, I'll just share it. When I was a reader reading, I was reading Tolstoy one summer for no good reason, like of my own volition. And I was reading The Brothers K, and I swear I could not get through it because I couldn't keep the characters' names straight. I didn't have a sound for them. If I had a Blue Canoe dictionary for those names, I mean, I just imagine as a non-native English speaking reader of English, that if you can use that browser extension to light up and just say out loud, you can really put it in your mind how this text sounds. I think that's pretty big. Yeah. How do you feel about that, Jannie? Have you had a chance to start using that?
No.
Not yet. Yeah. So that's there for everybody. Yeah. We had some couple of questions come up in the chat that I'd like to share, and one of them is more technical, but we're here to answer all of these. One is from Doug. Thanks, Doug. My students are early learners. I have a student who was somewhat discouraged with the sentences, and I was listening to her, and I think maybe she was overpronouncing the words in the sentences that are not stressed, maybe in the words that are not stressed. We haven't talked much about unstressed words in spoken English. And his question is, to what extent does Blue Canoe evaluate unstress? So interesting to folks, right? Yeah. We have primarily designed Blue Canoe first to look for color vowel at the location where stress should be. And so it's first looking in that place. We have some stress detectors that we've been working on. And then following that is unstress. And so these are pieces that are still evolving. And it's true that the feedback that students will get are going to point them in the direction of, this is where you need the color. But you may need to do some additional kind of support for evaluation while we have these other pieces up and evolving. Sarah, could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because you're a little more knowledgeable on the development side of unstress.
Sure. I would just say that we're focused, we have a prioritization, and we're focused first, you know, in every sentence, we scaffold them into thought groups. And on each line of a thought group is one focus word. And we are always evaluating that one focus word first. Like, did the stress get there in the right place? And is it the right color vowel? And we figure that if that's not right, why talk about anything else? Because anything else is secondary. So that's where the focus is, one focus word per line. Okay. And then if a focus word on a line is right, then we have time to start looking at other niceties. And we might very well, in that line, there could be one or two words that are content words that are also important, but maybe not as important as the focus word. And if there's a mistake with one of those, we also help out. There might be some words that frankly we completely ignore. Mm-hmm. Like an example, I don't think we even evaluate the word "and." No. Right? Exactly. And you know, it reminds me actually of that wonderful video of Laura teaching, where she's teaching her students, you know, the stress and then the little words underneath the stress, and then the stress and the little words in between the stress. And we're trying to do a little bit of that in Blue Canoe.
Yeah, thanks. Well, actually, I'm going to use what you've just done with your hands and that reminder. We're going to come to this question for a lot of folks. is the physicality of Blue Canoe is something that's easy to maybe not forget about, but it's easy for students to not know about. And so the physical aspect of it is something I've been really working on conveying lately, and it's part of why I have this screen. And something that Laura's done in her classroom is knowing that these sentences are designed, that we've actually crafted them, to be fairly, very practical and as authentic as we can make them, even though we're crafting sentences, because we all know that conundrum of authenticity when you craft a sentence. But something like, I hope you can give us an example. There are 3 thought groups here, or 3 tiny clauses that come together, and we aim for students to be opening their hands. How hard is it to get students to use Blue Canoe in this way? And I'll start with panelists, but I want to hear from others, meaning it's, we all walk around thinking that we're going to just tap and fix our lives by tuning our instrument with this thing, or, running with it and counting our steps. But not many people have apps that want them to do this. So any thoughts on that part, getting people to use the hand?
I do expect it to be a challenge. I'm going to encourage my students to do it because it works well in the classroom. But that's the one thing that there's nobody there to go, no, your hand's not doing it right. Yeah. Where they have that feedback with the pronunciation, but not with the action. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
Yeah, a little bit easier with adult learners. And so I taught it last term to my students, and then one of my students came back and she said, oh, that's so helpful. She watched your videos, Karen, I think one of the introductory videos, and she came back and she talked to me about it, and she said, and she was doing it, and she showed me how she did it and how she does it when she was using the app, and she just really thought it was great. It was real helpful to her.
Yeah. Well, let's all just try it while we reflect on that, because I want to hear more from our audience about helping support students in this physical aspect of pronunciation. For anyone who's new, I'll take a moment, we'll come back to that slide. For anyone who's new, the arm is this thing that's allowing us to visually and kinesthetically highlight stress without having to underline or use a highlighter. It's right here. But it's also this metric of our arm that creates the time on the vowel. That is what English stress revolves around. So if we say something like this, something like phenomenal, everyone try phenomenal. Phenomenal, yeah. It changes it from phenomenal to phenomenal. It's a very tiny difference, but a big one when you start speaking in sentences. Because if we lack that stress, it sounds too fast and incomprehensible.
Something I do in my classes, and I find it necessary because as we're playing Color It Out, we wind up getting into this sort of abbreviated hand motion, olive sock photography. like this. I said, no, you have to put your hand all the way out, and I make them clap hands with each other. And so on the screen, you can do that. You can say, well, you have to touch the screen, touch my hand on the screen. But again, there's no way to do that in the when you're practicing by yourself. But still, it reinforces that it's the time that it takes to extend your arm all the way out and come back that we're looking for, not just the indicating where the stress is, but also how long the time on vowel is.
That's right. Any other thoughts on how we're supporting students to interact physically?
Could I just I always like to bring up a comment when I fell asleep at Miami airport, almost missing my flight. They called out my name, Roberto Gole, whatever. They said it in Spanish. I can't even say it very well, but they said it and I didn't understand the rhythm. It was just my name, Robert Gole, but Roberto Gole. And they said it in such a way, it was really, really hard to understand. Those are just 2 words. The rhythm was all different. Mm-hmm. I should have been able to get it much quicker than I did. It took me a couple minutes. I mean, really.
I mean, just that idea that that getting the sounds in order is not enough, that we're really listening to patterns.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I just jump in and say that, if you're not doing this in your classes all the time, they're not going to use it on the app. you know, and you can't overuse the hand. You know, you can't just say, oh, we'll use the hand now. Like, it needs to be a part of your class. And if it's a part of your class, then they do it on the app. And I had one student tell the rest of the class last week, they said, oh, you have to use your hand when you play. It just makes all the difference. And they said, like, it was this older man. He said, if I use my hand, I get it right. I'm like, yes. So, you know, you use your hand in your classes. It should be assumed that your students will practice with you with your hand, and that transfers over. And sometimes they need a nudge, but it's nice when the other students encourage each other.
Do you use your hand with everything that you're talking to them about?
Not constantly. You know, I mean, I was exaggerating this now. Yeah. You know, I do it for most of the things. Yeah. And I have to do asynchronous classes. So I have to pre-record my lessons. And so it depends what we're teaching, but I always have to remind myself, you know, point this out to the students. So if I'm doing a reading passage and it's, what was it? Exciting topic was, oh,
So exciting.
yeah, it was techniques or something like teaching tips, or, you know, my strategies for learning. That was the wonderful topic that we had to study. And so we're reading or I'm reading to a no audience, you know, and I said, strategies for learning. And then I went, strategies for learning. In the video with no one with me, you know, I took the time, I said it, and then caught myself and I said, strategies for learning. Practice with me. Strategies for learning. Because I don't want them to say strategies for learning, you know. So I do that. I don't do it absolutely constantly, but for all the vocabulary words, when we're practicing grammar, if we're learning, let's see, it was, I need to, what was it? I need to take driving lessons. I want to learn to drive. I need to take driving lessons. So after I teach the grammar, I tell them how to say it. And why would I tell them how to say it without using the hand? So I really do use it a lot in my lessons, even when there's nobody listening, you know, because it's all asynchronous. And I will just jump in and say that our topic, the last unit, was school. And Blue Canoe just came out with academic school vocabulary and sentences. And I have a lot of students who struggle with the lessons, the sentences in Blue Canoe. They're higher with reading and writing. They have trouble with speaking. And if you don't know this already, there's a lot of lessons that are just 2-beat sentences and even 1-beat sentences. There's some lessons that are easier. And so I'm telling some of my students who are having trouble with the longer sentences to focus on those short ones. Things like, I'm glad to hear that, or congratulations. There's several sets that aren't as difficult, because some students, they say they can't get through those long sentences. So look for those sets and assign those. And I'll tell you right now that the school vocabulary, I'm assigning a different topic each day. I say, go to Blue Canoe lessons, go to beginning school conversations, do getting online. And they do 6 sentences like, it's time to get online. And that's a much shorter sentence. So anyway, that was just addressing, we were talking about how it was harder for some students to get through the lessons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And use your hand.
Definitely. And there are lots of reminders in the app, but really it comes down to us, the teachers, to provide that model. And Dawn, you know, it's a good point. We, you know, we don't always talk like this, but we do talk emphatically. So if you're having trouble knowing, you know, where to do it or how often to do it, try to be this kind of talker. You know, we're doing it already when we do all this kind of gesturing. So we just formalize it. And it's as crucial as if we were all learning Chinese. Wouldn't it be good if our teacher often had some signal for when it's an upward rising tone versus a downward tone versus the other tones that I don't know how to signal? But that's essentially what we're doing for our learners, is signaling this thing that they can't pick up on otherwise, but that they can do with a little help.
I used to do, when I read to classes when we were in school, and used to read to them, and they always wanted me to read it. They didn't want the other teacher because I was co-teaching, because I really followed the thought groups and I really did it emphatically. I really tried to read it like, you know, one of those old movie actors, you know, someone who had really good diction, and and they really appreciated it. They seemed to understand it more, and they really wanted me to read. So it's quite funny. But I think I helped them by doing it that way. Although I didn't use my hand when I read, but they did meet me in this hallway. They were like, Mr. Goal, you know, they were like, they were doing that all the time because I was always using my hand.
And then at least they didn't say, yeah, goalie. Now if they say goalie, at least you're gonna go. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to ask our panelists one final question, which is just advice. You know, as you're looking at, even though you're very early on the implementation journey of this semester, what kind of advice can you lend our guests on, especially those who are thinking about onboarding with Blue Canoe? What kind of advice would you give them about starting up with Blue Canoe? And that might be an instructional tip, or that might be maybe a more logistical one. But any thoughts on what you might suggest?
I think so. Probably demonstrating I teach a lower or kind of a mid-beginning class, and so sometimes the videos are a little fast, and so sometimes I'll, you know, we'll slow it down. I'll slow down the speed on the video so that it's a little bit slower. But then also, I was saying that I have an iPhone, and so on Zoom you can mirror your iPhone on the screen, and so I use that to show them how to do Blue Canoe or what the exercises are, or we'll do things together, and we'll just use my iPhone as the so that they can see how the app works, and so that's been helpful for me to get them logged on, and then to get them started with it. We can all play together on my iPhone.
So what I'm hearing as a base assumption is you don't just say, head off on your own and figure it out.
No.
I think the advice is they do need to be walked into that.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Heather, how about you?
Well, for my high school students, just speaking English is a challenge. A lot of things are a challenge when you're in high school, and just afraid to make mistakes. And so when I pull them for my ESL class, they're in a smaller group, and so they're a little more open to challenging themselves and trying new things. But having an app where they can sit at home and, you know, they can be by themselves and just really be practicing this, and still get that feedback, is huge for that age group. So yeah, I'm so excited to get it in the hands of even more students, just because when they're by themselves, they're not afraid to make mistakes. They'll try things, you know, that maybe they wouldn't even try in my classroom, and certainly wouldn't try in a content classroom with a bunch of native English speakers. So just feeling that openness and getting rid of that fear a little bit, just makes it huge. So my advice would be, try it, do it. Yeah, it makes a world of difference.
Wonderful. Well, I wanted to finish up with a couple of treats. One is, I know Jannie brought a treat to the room, a visual treat, because that's, you know, again, candy's off the table. But, you know, Jannie's one of our earliest adopters, actually, of Color Vowel. I went out back in 2010 to Oregon and trained you and your colleagues. And so you've been, you know, running amok with the Color Vowel chart for a while. Show us what you've been doing with students and just how you came about that idea, would you?
Well, this is in our face-to-face class, so I'll share this. I don't know if you can see this, but we've discovered that we like to do what we call installations. So this is in our hallway in our adult ESL, adult basic skills building. And we do chalk walls. And so we'll do, like at Thanksgiving, we'll do this huge piece of paper with chalk, colored chalk, and it's what I'm thankful for. Or we had one, what I want to do before I die. And then one of our teachers had the great idea of doing a color vowel chart. So this is probably what, 20 feet maybe long? And students then, and so she worked on all the colors. You can, and so we're the West Coast without the Auburn dog. And then students would, in their classes, they would write a word, and they would decide where the stress was, and then they had to put it on the color vowel chart wherever it fit. And then students would like disagree with each other and move the Post-it notes around, and then they'd disagree and they'd move it back. And so everyone had all the classes that were doing it would put Post-it notes of the words they were learning in their class up here on the color vowel chart. So this was just kind of our, this was one of our installations.
That's a lot of fun. I know
we do it every year, actually. So we do it every spring. We
you just roll it up and put it in the closet,
yeah,
and bring
just
it back
put it
out.
away and then put it back out. Yep.
Fabulous. Well, it's we're doing a lot. I think in the room on Fridays at 5, we've had Jamboard sessions. People are using Jamboard, and I think that might lend itself to what you're doing. There are probably a couple of other good applications for that. So if folks are interested, our Fridays at 5 always blend technology with what we're doing with Color Vowel. Precisely, how to bridge that physical and digital world.
Well, I just want to say what we liked about it was our whole program did it. So all the classes that were learning Color Vowel were doing it. And, the beginning classes were writing very simple words, school or, pencil. And then the upper level students were doing, understandable or something like that. So it really brought, what we're trying to do is things that bring the whole program at all the levels into kind of connection with each other.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Anybody who has ideas on how to do that, I want to replicate that online. That's fabulous. What a great idea. Well, I want to thank, I know we're going to have stages of thanking, but I want to explicitly thank our panelists, if we could just give them a nice round of applause for, stepping in and sharing what they're doing. We're all out there, working and creating our own innovations to solve our problems. I want to have our closure be with this solution to a problem that sort of came up at the beginning, which was, how do you play this wonderful game that our students have loved and that prompted the creation of an entire app around it, that suddenly is no longer this, we can't sit here face to face and look at the cards between us. Well, one of our teachers have done that. And so Lynn, who I don't think was able to join us this afternoon, posted this really lovely video, and I think you'll immediately get out your document camera after you see this. She took out her document camera and colored it out, and it already starts to look interesting, but watch what happens and how she's using it. Here's the game in a digital format for all to play.
The cards are all like that.
Oh, here.
So if you need me to turn it over, just tell me and I can turn it over. So I'll start.
Here we go.
So you choose 2 cards of the same color, okay? And you have to read them like, I'll start, that way we can, and everything's gonna be with this card. So this card you have to use.
Oh, some card just opposite.
Yeah, I know. If you need me to turn it over, I can turn it over, right? Because the cards are all like that. So if you need me to turn it over, just tell me and I can turn it over. So I'll start. So I'm going to choose this one and this one. I'm going to choose the olive and the olive. So I have to choose 2 of the same color. And I read olive sock thought, olive sock daughter. You see how that works?
Yeah, choose right now.
Okay, so that was the turn. Now you have to use this card, so you can either have olive or purple, and I'm going to put another card there. So, Susan, I'll let you go. You can choose olive or purple, and you have to find another card with olive or purple.
Olive. Can I choose red paper? No.
Nope, you have to use this card right here.
Okay. Purple shirt.
So here, I'll turn it so you can read it.
Girl, purple shirt, girl, purple shirt first.
All right. Tom, do you see how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ta-da! Isn't that fun? Like to just, just a way to bridge. It's very simple, very mechanical, but here we are able to play just by breaking out of the handheld fan of cards. Now it's flat and one place to discard. We get to hear their voices. I love hearing student voices, right? Yeah. So this is what it's all about. I'm so glad you were able to come today. Thank you for joining us, Heather and Jannie, for an afternoon. I hope you come again. We'll be, sharing our tools and all of these great things that teachers are doing every day, innovating, and know that we just love talking about language and providing students with voice. Okay.
Karen, will you put the link to that video in the chat?
Oh, that one's not cleared for public.
Okay.
Public, but it's a good motivator to get people. Anytime you own a copy of the Color Vowel Approach, which is either through our courses or through our starter kits, this provides you with access to our private Facebook community. So, Jannie, you and we can find a little way to share. But
I just wanted to show my teachers.
Absolutely. We'll find a way to get that. I think we can get that cleared now that I think about it. There aren't any faces on it and no big identifier, so we'll work on it. But for now, it's held in private. But yeah, those kinds of ideas are shared every day. So please join us in the community. We look forward to having all of you. I want to thank Sarah for joining us today over from Blue Canoe. And Penny and Jennifer have been great about answering questions over here in the chat, and all of our teachers, all of you who have been here with us today. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Jannie.
Thank you for having us. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
Many thanks to both of you. You shared a lot, and it was just wonderful to hear, and it was a great conversation. So thank you both for taking the time to do that.
And not near as scary as I thought it was going to be.